to make your way into the semifinals and the final.
Yeah, I mean, I think, too, this whole tournament has been best of 3, and I think when that happens, these teams are really tested. You can't get this far on tricks. Even though you might have a team that's more difficult to play against because you're using some looks that people don't see a lot of, you're not winning on surprise. You're winning because you have a combination of Pokemon that people just can't find a way to deal with.
Exactly, and I mean, there are some move sets that people are using that aren't too familiar with, and we've seen some of them on stream, and it's about how the players manage the information that they have in that first game and use it to get through to the final of the best of 3.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that's kind of interesting too, in that some of these teams are so similar that even when you don't have a super far out there team, it's kind of hard to guess at, what was the third move that Groudon had and that sort of thing.
So we can see Ethan Horn on the left-hand side of your screen and also Jamie Boyt on the right-hand side. And it's a beard battle today, for sure. That is definitely everything that's happening. I'm kind of jealous of the beard level that we've got going on. And we're going to move directly into team preview. So on your screen, you're seeing Jamie's team again, which is Theraphorn, Gengar, Groudon, Kyogre, Salamence, and Zapdos. And for Ethan, which you can't see, it's going to be Groudon, Xerneas, Kangaskhan, Gengar, Amoonguss, and Latios.
So I'm kind of excited by both of these teams. We've got two common combinations of restricted Pokemon with Groudon and Xerneas and Kyogre and Groudon, but these teams really aren't what you're used to seeing with them. With the Zapdos in particular on Jamie's side, a Pokemon we don't see a lot of, and Gengar, Latios in general is not what we're used to seeing with Groudon and Xerneas. Usually, you kind of see the big 6 around them. It's like the big 3, and at that point, is Jamie's team the big 2 because it's got Groudon and Salamence? Kind of a different look than we're used to seeing.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously the level of Big 6 play, level of Xerneas play has been quite muted so far in this tournament, or especially on stream. So having these additional options like the Zapdos on Jamie's side of the field, also the Latios, which has a big attacking move pool. So it'll be interesting to see how these players are using these slightly more niche options to position themselves for the later games.
And that may be what's needed too. Maybe a more standard Big 6 wouldn't have made it this far, but because Groudon and Xerneas are paired with very different Pokemon than normal, it can beat some of those matchups that players have not been anticipating. They're expecting Talonflame to be there. Instead, maybe those strategies don't work as well against Latios.
Well, okay, I mean, so we've got one of the most common Pokemon in the format appearing on your screen. We've got Ethan Halls using his Primal Groudon paired with a Gengar next to it. And on Jamie's side of the field, we've got another Gengar and his Zapdos.
Yeah, kind of surprised to see our first Gengar mirror this deep in the tournament. Gengar's been a pretty popular Pokemon throughout the season. You can either give it a Focus Sash, let it use some support moves as regular Gengar, Icy Wind in particular, but also often Taunt. Also capable of Mega Evolving into Mega Gengar using that Shadow Tag ability to be very disruptive. There's a lot of different looks it has, and because of that, a lot of people have used it. I'm surprised we haven't seen more of it, and it'll be interesting to see how effective these Gengar are in this battle.
Well, Jamie was known for using a Icy Wind Gengar quite early in the season, so maybe he's reverting to something he's a bit more comfortable with at this point in the season. And yeah, as you said, the flexibility. Oh, and there's an Icy Wind coming out from Jamie Boyt's Gengar, going directly onto the opposing Gengar to do some chip damage, and onto that Groudon to do a little bit of chip damage, but most notably dropping their speed. So, and oh look. Wow, so a Gengar mirror, but also an Icy Wind mirror coming out on both sides of the field, doing a fair amount of damage to that Zapdos due to its weakness, and also getting a critical hit on the Gengar, dropping speed on both sides of the field. But there goes the Tailwind that Jamie used earlier in the set, earlier on the stream, and that's going to put him in a better speed advantage. Oh, wow, there's so much speed advantage going on. And there's a Rock Tomb going onto the Zapdos, putting it out of commission.
Yeah, that critical hit, very important there. Zapdos going down. Rock Tomb, a very interesting rock-type attacking ground, though. It's something we see occasionally, but definitely not frequently. But, there's kind of something with all of the rock-type moves that's a little undesirable. Rock Tomb, one of the most accurate options. In addition to that, that speed drop really valuable, and something you can kind of take advantage of. If you're not sure what your opponent's going to switch into, a speed drop's good against everything. So, nice play there by Ethan, and cool to see Rock Tomb.
Yeah, and also Jamie managing to get that Tailwind up before the Zapdos was knocked out has put him in a very good position. Now he's managed to switch in his Primal Kyogre. The weather has changed into his favor, and Groudon has to rely more on these coverage moves like Precipice Blades and also on Rock Tomb. They can't get off big fire-type attacks.
Yeah, Zapdos being knocked out there may actually end up helping Jamie. Usually you never really want to lose a Pokemon, but Kyogre is out for the full duration of Tailwind. with the added bonus that its weather is active in the field and Groudon is stuck out there, it's going to be very difficult for it to reactivate Desolate Land.
Well, being stuck out there is surely a thing because he's protecting itself. And there's a Water Spout coming out from Jamie's side trying to get some massive damage onto that Groudon, which protects itself, but Gengar can't protect itself and is knocked out. And another Icy Wind coming out from Jamie's side of the field, just wanting to further push the speed down of Ethan's Pokemon.
Now, Ethan's going to get another free switch here, and Kangaskhan's going to come in, so the threat of Fake Out will allow Ethan to stall out a turn of Tailwind, most likely. But, Gengar fainting is a big deal there, too. Another move that we sometimes see from Gengar is Skill Swap, which would have allowed that Weather War to turn around. No such luck this time, and Kyogre likely to be keeping control of the weather for a little while longer.
It'll be interesting to see if Ethan's Kangaskhan is either the Scrappy ability or the Inner Focus, because if he's got the Scrappy ability, he can hit the Gengar if he remains un-Mega Evolved. But you'd imagine that he'd want to make sure that Kyogre can't get a big Water Spout off this turn as well.
Yeah, he almost has to. The only reason you don't Fake Out Kyogre here, if you're just assuming your opponent's going to anticipate that and use Protect, and you just want to kind of get cute, but I think that'd be a huge risk here. I can't imagine him going for it.
So here we go, that's that Mega Evolution, just making sure that he gets the most amount of damage with the Parental Bond ability should he use Fake Out. The Kyogre is going to protect to make sure that it doesn't take any additional damage if Kangaskhan targets it down with a Fake Out. There it is. Yep, safest play possible, just going to move it on. And there's the skill swap coming out from Gengar onto the Kangaskhan. So Parental Bond goes bye-bye, but now Kangaskhan and its baby are just floating in the air.
Baby's not going to be attacking for the rest of this battle.
And there we go. There's the Rock Tomb going onto Gengar, which does a lot of damage, dropping its speed even further. And it still hangs in there, but it's a slow Gengar now.
Yeah, it is, but it's kind of done what it needed to do. Reducing that damage from Kangaskhan really puts Ethan in a tough spot. Kangaskhan lost Parental Bond. Groudon doesn't have Desolate Land active. Both these Pokemon very reliant on their abilities to increase their damage, and with that Kyogre still staring them down and Tailwind active for another turn, Ethan's going to have to be very careful here.
Yes. So, Jamie's really making sure that he's got the advantage when it comes to speed, but also he's just punishing Ethan for using Pokemon that really rely on their abilities, as you said, Scott.
Yeah, excellent positioning, too, by Jamie. After Zapdos fainted, it just seemed like he's had great positioning for the rest of his battle.
And so Groudon's going to protect himself again to make sure that Kyogre can't launch a massive Water Spout, and Sucker Punch coming out from Kangaskhan just to get some chip damage onto that Kyogre, reducing the amount of damage it can do with its Water Spout. But in the rain, it's still going to do a huge amount of damage going first, and leaving Kangaskhan with only 37 HP remaining. And the Icy Wind coming out from Gengar is going to do some damage to Kangaskhan as well, and leave it with 13 HP, but reducing its speed as well, especially as Tailwind comes to a close.
Yeah, that's a big deal. We saw that Icy Wind on the first turn of the battle, so Ethan's in a really rough spot here. A Water Spout from Kyogre would almost end this battle if he were to hit both Pokemon. I'm not sure what tools Ethan's going to have available to him to prevent that from happening. He lost Parental Bond, so Kangaskhan's not too serious of a damage threat. Unless the remaining Pokemon on Ethan's side is a big difference maker here, Jamie's looking really good in Game 1.
Yeah, so Gengar is obviously a lot slower than it usually is, so we have to see if the Kyogre can put some work in on that Groudon, and Groudon's going to go down for free here. It's going to be a Kangaskhan going down, Groudon going down, and that's just a really disappointing turn for Ethan.
Yeah, I don't know if there was much he could do. Jamie's just played himself into a great position, and again, that weird critical hit on Zapdos was very helpful for Jamie. Not the first time. Some sort of thing happened the last time he was on stream, where critical hits on his Pokemon seem to be just what he wants.
Well, we were talking about it just before this match started, how we didn't want seeing many Xerneas, and here it is, finally making an appearance in the top 8. But it looks like we might see a forfeit coming out from Ethan Hall. He's in a pretty awful position, 3 against 1, and he does forfeit the match.
Yeah, tough game for Ethan there. Certainly a matchup he can come back from, but not too much to learn from that. The only thing that I think would have been interesting there is I'm curious if he knows the final moves on Jamie's Gengar. With it still having Parental Bond there, it probably would have attacked, maybe find out does it have Sludge Bomb, which most but not all Gengar do.
A lot of trainers have been trying to move more towards the Sludge Bomb action. At the beginning of the format, people were running both Sludge Bomb and Shadow Ball. But as things have progressed, Sludge Bomb has become more the norm due to the amount of damage it does to Xerneas.
Yeah, and that's kind of exactly the situation we're going to see there. And one of the reasons why Jamie's got a decent team matchup here, Gengar, a pretty strong Pokemon against most of what Ethan has, and he's kind of missing the members of the Big Six that Gengar struggles against. You know, that's one of the things that I think the adjustments he's made to his team, he's kind of hurt his matchup with. Although, you know, we haven't seen that Latios yet. Maybe he could make some plays.
Especially against a Gengar.
Yeah, I mean, the only trick will be that Focus Sash, of course,
Yes.
where, you know, you don't want to Psyshock into that and take a bunch of damage in return for nothing.
Okay, so on your screen you can see Jamie Boyt's team again, which is Theraphorn, Gengar, Groudon, Kyogre, Salamence, and Zapdos. And on Ethan's side of the field, we have the Groudon, that Xerneas, Kangaskhan, Gengar, Amoonguss, and the Latios.
Yeah, I'm curious if we'll see any adjustments here. Jamie had control of that game for most of the way through. And
He really led with a strong speed advantage style, so wanting to get that tailwind up and also lowering the opponent's speed with Icy Wind.
yeah, I'm curious to see if Ethan will make some adjustments here. I don't know if that was the best way for him to approach this matchup. Even without the critical hit, I think it'd be tricky to try to win that one. At the very least, you know, he's got to try to get his control of the weather a little bit better, where he was just pinned the entire game.
So now we're underway with match 2. Jamie Boyt has won the first of this set, and we're going to see Amoonguss and Xerneas coming out from Ethan's side of the field, going up against Salamence and Zapdos from Jamie.
And so Ethan does make an adjustment here, trying to set up that Geomancy. Amoonguss not super happy to be facing down 2 flying-type Pokemon, but it's a decent spot for him. And we saw Roar from Jamie Zapdos already, and you know, that's one way you can stop Xerneas' Geomancy, but it's not going to work nearly as well next to a potential Rage Powder. But both players probably know that's available too. So, you know, do you still Rage Powder knowing that? Do you still Roar knowing that? Be some mind games on this turn to see who can get an advantage early.
Well, Jamie was saying earlier in his interview with Matt that there was the reason for choosing Roar in the first place. Obviously, it helped him with his Trick Room matchup, but also it was mostly for dealing with that Geomancy from Xerneas. So Salamence is now going to Mega Evolve, and it's going to launch a Double Edge onto the Amoonguss, crocking the Occa Berry, and that's going to do just over 2/3 of the damage. And also the Cobra Berry has been crocked, obviously. And yeah, so the Geomancy coming out from the Xerneas. Geomancy on Amoonguss, that would be ridiculous. Yeah, so the Geomancy on the Xerneas coming out, and we have the Power Herb activating, and the fabulous animation going to boost both its special attack, its special defense, and its speed.
And its looks.
Oh yeah, look how shiny it is. It looks amazing. So as you can see, the boost are now coming in for Xerneas, and a Spore coming out from Amoonguss going on to that Zapdos.
So Zapdos not moving there, going for the Roar, and Amoonguss not having any of that.
Yep.
Kind of a fun way to solve that. You know, he could have Rage Powdered the Roar, but decides he wants to keep Amoonguss on the field, so he just puts Zapdos to sleep instead. And I think he gets a much better position out of it. I really like that play by Ethan. Certainly, Jamie looking like he was not expecting that Cobra Berry. We don't see that too frequently on Amoonguss, and haven't for a good 5 seasons now, but really paying dividends in this match.
Well, we were talking about it yesterday, Scott, that Amoonguss can use this Cobra Berry to reduce the attacks of all the popular flying-type Pokemon that we have in this format, with Mega Rayquaza, with its Dragon Ascent attack, Brave Bird from Talonflame, but also the Hyper Voice and Double Edge from Mega Salamence. And here goes the Rage Powder on Amoonguss, and a Dazzling Gleam coming out from Xerneas, which is going to do massive damage to Salamence, knocking it out, and Zapdos barely survives.
Does have a chance to wake up here, and Jamie really needs it to.
So here we go, it's crocking that Citrus Berry, it's going to heal some of his health back, but will it get a turn 1 wake up or not? No, it does not. That's really unfortunate for Jamie.
As Zapdos continuing to sleep, and Ethan's got the big lead now. He could win Game 2 just as decisively as Jamie won Game 1, thanks to that Cobra Berry. Not something we often see, but if you look at Ethan's team with Groudon, Xerneas, Kangaskhan, Gengar, Amoonguss, and Latios, he has a lot of Pokemon that struggle against Mega Salamence, and I think having that Cobra Berry really cleans up that matchup. Maybe not the best choice for every team, but I think a really fantastic choice for his team. It shows that he really understands his matchups.
Yeah, I mean, getting a Geomancy off and sweeping through with Dazzling Gleam just seems to be a pretty good option right about now. So we've got, what will Amoonguss do this turn? Will it be trying to protect Xerneas to get any single target attacks away from it, and possibly a Fire Punch coming out from the Groudon on the opposing side of the field? Or will it just worry about the Precipice Blades?
Kind of a tricky play, you know, the temptation on Ethan's side, I'll just safely protect my Xerneas and switch in Kyogre, but you really don't want to give Zapdos a chance to use Tailwind and get him back in the game.
So Amoonguss is going to leave the field for the Latios with the Levitate ability. It's not going to take any damage should a Dazzling Gleam, Precipice Blades come out. Here goes the Dazzling Gleam, which is going to knock out that Zapdos and do a fair amount of damage to Groudon, leaving it with just over half HP. And there is the Precipice Blades, the Levitate ability activating on Latios, meaning it won't take any damage from this, but reducing the amount of damage done to Xerneas because it's still a spread attack.
Yeah, not a whole lot of damage from that Precipice Blade. Xerneas taking it very well, and I like Latios coming in here. It's, you know, both because I can't remember the last time I've seen a Latios in a battle, and also because, it kind of keeps him in a safe position. If he doesn't want to send out his Kyogre, he doesn't have to. He still has, the intimidation factor of or his Groudon rather. He doesn't have the intimidation of that restricted Pokemon in the back, but he's still got this power out front too. The rest of this battle is going to be very tough for Jamie. A lot of difficult Pokemon to knock out.
And I mean, Ethan is actually familiar with the Latios. He's used it previously in the last season to get a top 8 in the UK Nationals there. And so hopefully he knows his way around using it in this format. It's got a very high special attack stat. It's also got most commonly used as like a choice scarf. So its speed is going to be quite fast to be able to maybe pick up a knockout on the Groudon if he uses something like Draco Meteor or another large special attack.
Yeah, as both a Dragon-type Pokemon and a Pokemon with the ability Levitate, there's very little Groudon can do against it. And Kyogre is going to have a hard time trying to burn it down, too, with a Geomancy Xerneas sitting next to it.
And there goes the Moonblast coming out from Xerneas, going to do massive damage to that Kyogre, leaving it with very little HP left, and a special attack drop as well, which is not great, and doubling up from Ethan onto that Kyogre, just making its life even more difficult. So Jamie's left with just Groudon on this side of the field. The heavy rain is now going to dissipate, and the Precipice Blaze is coming out again onto the Xerneas, but with the damage it was dealt last time, it's probably going to survive this as well.
Yeah, and even if it doesn't, we've got this situation now where Latios is out against Groudon and just not going to be able to do much damage here. A really decisive victory for Ethan in this game 1. That Koba Berry basically ends the game before it even gets going.
Yeah, I mean, Amoonguss was putting a lot of work in. We discussed this yesterday, how it seems like some people are leaning back towards Amoonguss as we get further closer to the World Championship. So it'll be interesting to see if Ethan is going to follow the same strategy going into Game 3 about setting up Xerneas and trying to really put pressure on Jamie's side of the field.
It was going to be an extremely important team preview here. I think turn 0 with the team preview is almost always the most important turn in the game, but especially now. Both sides have won very hard. They've shown that if they get control of the match, they can finish it off very well. So starting out this next battle strong is going to be very important. The winner of this Game 3 is going to move on to the top 4. Loser's going to be eliminated. It's very tense. Yeah. And I think Jamie's going to have to look at this one now. I was like, okay, well, if he does lead Amoonguss Xerneas, what do I do? Because my strategy against the Amoonguss Xerneas lead doesn't work against this particular variant of that duo.
So we're going to go back into team preview here. You can see on your screen Jamie's team once again, which is Theraphon, Gengar, Groudon, Kyogre, Salamence, and that Zapdos. And we're going to go for Ethan's team, which is the Groudon, the Xerneas, which performed so well last time, Kangaskhan, Gengar, the MVP Amoonguss, and the Latios.
Yeah, I think we're looking at the Pokemon that Jamie could try out here, Ferrothorn. If we do see a similar strategy as last game, picking Ferrothorn into Groudon is never the most exciting thing in the world, but there's a bunch of Pokemon on Ethan's team that struggle with it. Xerneas, Kangaskhan can do big damage to it, but doesn't really like those iron barbs. Gengar can do very little. Amoonguss can do essentially nothing. Latios also struggles against it. Most of that team struggles with Ferrothorn. I'm kind of surprised Jamie hasn't needed it so far, but definitely an option in this decisive third game if he's concerned about losing to Xerneas again.
And we were talking about how some certain moves can put the matchup in people's favor, but also certain items. And obviously Jamie's Ferrothorn is holding that Life Orb, so some of the calcs that Ethan may have made previous to this tournament may not include that extra little bit of damage that Life Orb will give it. So maybe that, if Jamie has decided to bring the Ferrothorn, then it will be interesting to see how Ethan plans to deal with it.
And another great spin on players using Pokemon a little differently than normal. You've seen Ferrothorn mostly using Leech Seed in battles on the stream so far. Jamie going a very different direction, but for now we see Gengar and Latios starting the battle with the 2 Groudon.
Yep, so Ethan's Groudon is going to Primal Revert on his... Oh, sorry, that's Jamie's Groudon's going to Primal Revert on his side of the field. And then going to set up the Sun, which I think Ethan's Groudon is probably going to appreciate as well. So, yeah, as you said, we've got both Groudon on the side of the field, the Latios next to Ethan's, and then the Gengar on his side of the field. You probably see an Icy Wind coming out from Gengar on... Jamie's side of the field. If it can survive with the Focus Sash, it could survive the turn against the Latios from Ethan.
Yeah, seeing what this Latios does is really interesting. We kind of talked about the potential of Latios and Gengar running to each other before, but this is another Pokemon that people just aren't used to playing against. And Latios can learn a wide variety of moves. Trait of a lot of Psychic-type Pokemon is that there's a lot of potential options available, and it's very unlikely that Jamie's had a way to find out what moves that Latios might have. All we saw in the previous battle was Psychic, which you kind of assumes it doesn't really really tell you anything. Tricky turn from him here. He's still in a tough spot, but we do see Psychic once again.
Yeah, so that Psychic coming out from Latios onto the Gengar, taking it down to its Focus Sash, which is going to activate and leave it with 1 HP remaining. And the skill swap coming out from the Gengar onto the Groudon on Jamie's side of the field, possibly wanting to give it the Levitate ability so that it just survives from survive the Precipice Blades from Ethan's side of the field. Here goes the Precipice Blades from Jamie's Groudon onto Ethan's, doing a big amount of damage, and the Rock Tomb coming out to finish off that Gengar on Jamie's side of the field.
Yeah, Ethan prioritizing that Gengar, perhaps feeling that the potential of Icy Wind is a little bit too much to deal with. Works out pretty well for him in the sense that if he used Precipice Blades, he would have done the same thing as Rock Tomb there anyway. But Jamie kind of in an interesting spot now. He's given up a Pokemon without doing any damage with it, but the benefit of that is now he gets another switch into one of his remaining Pokemon, either Kyogre or his other unrestricted Pokemon, and Groudon's sitting pretty, floating in the air now. It's going to be very difficult for Ethan's Groudon to do serious damage to it.
So speaking of that Kyogre, here it comes. It's going to bring the rain with it. Primal Kyogre entering the field with a big splash. The Primordial Sea ability is going to activate, removing the Sun and stopping any Fire-type attacks coming out from either Groudon.
Yeah, that's a nice spot for Kyogre here. It's going to be able to do some pretty serious damage with that beefy special defense. Latios' Psychic likely not going to be too damaging to it. Groudon probably not going to be quite as lucky. And, Latios is going to have to do something here. Psychic alone is kind of a weird move to be locked into, but very good neutral coverage this year. I know Jamie's got great board position now. He's looking like he's going to pick up some knockouts. Ethan's got to find a way to do something.
Ethan's Groudon is under a lot of pressure here. He's either got to let it sacrifice and lose one of his restricted legendary Pokemon. He's got to switch it, and nothing really wants to take any of these big spread damage attacks from either Groudon or Kyogre. Yeah,
that's the problem, is that you kind of have to sacrifice whatever in the back if you switch Groudon out here, which he's probably going to need to do eventually, and certainly if Xerneas is the remaining Pokemon, you don't want to switch it in.
Well, there goes the Psychic from his Latios going onto the Kyogre, picking up a critical hit, and it's going to do just over a third of damage, and the Rock Slide coming out from Jamie's side is going to do some big damage. Going to do some damage to the Groudon, and the Ice Beam coming out from Kyogre is going to knock out that Latios. So again, the really fast Psychic putting in a little bit of work against the Kyogre. Boo, and there goes the flinch. So the Groudon on the Ethan side of the field has been completely neutered for the turn.
Yeah, I thought Jamie was being a little cheeky, not finishing off that Groudon. Maybe it would have been wiser to just take the safe knockout. But turns out what he did is a lot better, because Groudon staying on the field at that low health isn't going to really allow it to do anything. It still has to switch out and back in if it wants to get its Fire-type attacks back. Meanwhile, Groudon and Kyogre and Jamie's side staring him down. Xerneas could have a really hard time setting up against both of them. That extra damage from the critical hit from Latios' Psychic and Kyogre could help get it into KO range of something, but this is a really tough spot for Ethan now.
Yeah, I mean, Ethan revealed that he wanted to punish the Kyogre with a Moonblast from the Xerneas before when it had its Geomancy boost in the last match, but Groudon on Jamie's side of the field, being faster than Ethan, it still puts it under immense pressure.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how you get out of this one. The one good thing for Ethan is that with Rain active, Jamie's Groudon has Fire Punch. He's not going to be able to use it in Xerneas, the highest damage option to start taking it down. But we've seen him go for Precipice Blades instead in previous games anyway.
So Ethan's going to protect that Xerneas, wanting to preserve it in case he's got something in the back that will help it be able to set up a Geomancy. And there is the Precipice Blades coming out from Groudon on Jamie's side of the field, which will take out the opposing Groudon. And now Ethan really has to hope that the Pokemon in the back is going to help him win this game.
Yeah, I like Ethan's play here, even though it kind of looks like he just gives up something for nothing. Groudon surviving there because of that Rock Slide flinch, hitting it rather than Precipice Blades, actually really didn't help him, because he needs Kangaskhan out now to help him set up. Now with Kangaskhan on the field, that Fake Out can allow for a Geomancy, and that'll be Ethan's last chance at taking this game. We've seen one of the situations this game where a Pokemon fainting or not really changes the flow of the game. On Jamie's side, getting critical hit helped him in game one. This time, he had to Ethan had to lose Xerneas' Protect to make up for Groudon weirdly surviving.
Yeah. So Ethan doing all he can to swing the momentum back in his favor. Obviously, we've got the Fake Out option available for the Kangaskhan on the side of the field. How will Jamie react? Will he double Protect to burn the Fake Out? Oh, a Frustration coming directly out from the Kangaskhan. It's going to do some big physical damage to the Kyogre, and it's going to knock it out as well. Bye-bye, Kyogre.
Yeah, Feint's a little bit better of a status condition than Flinch, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense. So, Xerneas on this side, and then Precipice Blades coming out. Oh, it's going to dodge the Precipice Blades for the Xerneas. which means it's going to stay full health for this turn, which is pretty great for it. A Geomancy, and we also just saw there that the Groudon on Jamie's side of the field outspeeds the Xerneas.
Yeah, well, for now anyway, but that Geomancy increasing Xerneas' stats, it's going to go quick. You know, it looks like it's a bulkier Xerneas, not that timid Xerneas with max special attack and speed we've seen from a lot of players. And oh, it's going to be tough for Jamie to knock out now. That's a big Precipice Blades miss.
Yeah. So with the full health Xerneas now boosted, and with the fact that it is a little bit bulkier, but here comes the Ferrothorn that we were talking about earlier today, Scott. So with that Life Orb damage and the Geomancy boost, a Gyro Ball coming out from that should surely be able to put the Xerneas away.
Oh, this is a really fascinating matchup. You know, Ferrothorn should be easily able to knock out Xerneas if he's given the opportunity, but Ethan shouldn't give them that opportunity. The combination of a Kangaskhan low kick and a dazzling gleam from Xerneas would certainly pick up that knockout. So we've got some mind games here. Groudon's going to be able to deal with Xerneas decently well if they end up matched up one-on-one, but I'm not quite sure if a single target Precipice Blades is going to 2-hit KO that Xerneas as bulky as it is. And
you might want to pair down against the Kangaskhan, remove it from the field.
Yeah,
and then focus down on the Xerneas in the second go. So here goes the Dazzling Gleam directly into the Ferrothorn and the Groudon. It's going to take Groudon to around half HP and do a third of damage from Ferrothorn. And the low kick coming out onto Ferrothorn from Kangaskhan, and that's going to put Ferrothorn to bed. So the Iron Barb's damage taken onto Kangaskhan, but for Jamie, that's a really unfortunate turn. If he'd have protected the Ferrothorn there, he probably could have made Ethan's life a bit more difficult. The Precipice Blades coming out from Groudon, Primal Groudon is going to be able to take the knockout onto the Kangaskhan, but with Xerneas still at such high HP, it's looking a bit difficult.
Yeah, I mean, that Precipice Blades does good damage, and a second Precipice Blades would surely pick up that knockout, but Dazzling Gleam did too much damage. Jamie needed to protect that Ferrothorn, keep it alive for an extra turn, so that he could use Gyro Ball this turn, as this Moonblast is going to be doing a lot of damage.
Here we go. So the Moonblast coming out from the boosted Xerneas onto the Groudon, which picks up the KO onto the Groudon. And Ethan Hall takes Game 2 in the first of our top 8 matches here at the UK Nationals in Liverpool, UK.
Yeah, really exciting 3-game set in that one. It was close the whole way through, but able to come back from behind. We haven't seen that happen too many times where Game 1 went to Jamie very decisively and didn't shake Ethan. He came back, he won 2 games in a row, able to take this series.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he put a lot of faith into Latios in the second and third match, and that really fast special attack really helped him pair down against the Groudon, also get some important chip damage against the Kyogre, and also the Amoonguss in the second match put in so much work, and he felt that he didn't even need it in the third. Yeah,
I really like that, where I've taken this game with Amoonguss, the surprise is out of the bag. I'm going to go for a different strategy for next game rather than just letting his opponent adapt. And we see a lot of games where players win, and then in the subsequent game, they just use the same lead combination again, kind of daring their opponent to beat it. I think Ethan wisely just moved on to the next strategy. There's no margin for error in a Game 3. He played that series really cleverly, I think.
Well, let's find out how cleverly he planned for it when we get him into an interview in just 1 second. So we're going to take a quick break, so don't go anywhere. Hello trainers, welcome back to the Pokemon UK National Championships, and I'm here with Ethan Hall, the first winner of our top 8 bracket. So Ethan, how are you feeling?
Amazing. I've never gone this far into a tournament. And it's speechless almost.
Oh, but I mean, you really managed to figure out the game plan moving away from the first loss against Jamie. The way that you managed the Game 2 and then the Game 3 was really exceptional.
Yeah, I just figured kind of try and go all in with Xerneas, because that's been working for me against the kind of double primal matchups in Swiss yesterday. So.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the things Scott and I noticed is that your Xerneas is a little bit slower than most usual ones.
Yeah, it's quite a bit slower. I decided to go really, really defensive, kind of to help me survive all those Precipice Blades.
Yeah. And it really helped you against Jamie's team. He was really trying to hammer home the Precipice Blades, and you just managed to shrug him off.
Yeah.
So a little bit about that Amoonguss that we saw in the second game. Obviously, with the Ockerberry, it had a lot of defensive estimates against stuff like Double Edge from the Salamence. How important is that to your team building?
It lets me redirect more Double Edges and possibly Brave Birds from Talonflame, and even Dragon Ascents from Rayquaza. But it also gives me opportunities to get spores off like I did in Game 2.
Yeah. So I mean, is the Amoonguss Xerneas pairing quite a good option for you usually?
Very strong.
Yeah.
You've got redirection, spore. They kind of have to prioritize both of them because they're very well, Among Us is very disruptive and Xerneas is very strong. So
Yeah, and no one wants to make the miscalculation and get spoiled for it.
yeah.
So also a little bit about that Latios that you're using. Obviously, really fast, managed to get a lot of special attack going off. I heard that you actually used Latios last season as well, or 2014.
I didn't play in 2014.
Oh.
No, this is my first time using Latios.
Oh, how did you find it?
It's nice. It was really strange. I wasn't expecting it to really do too much, but it's been really crucial in several games. So.
Well, I mean, we had a lot of neutral damage with Psychic.
Okay.
Yeah, and it just does a massive chunk to Groudon, which isn't obviously not that specially bulky. But then also doing some significant damage to Kyogre as well, putting it in range for other attacks.
Oh, I did get quite lucky with the crit.
Yeah. But I mean,
it's
like,
still,
it's
still
you
good
can,
chunks.
Exactly, especially seeing as you move first most times, and you can just really spread the damage around and clean up with the Pokemon later.
Yeah.
Great. So, guys, thanks for joining us. Ethan, congratulations once again. And we're going to take a quick break now, but we'll be back with the second top cut match for the top 8 at UK Nationals 2016.